कृष्णं वंदे जगद्गुरुं सर्ववेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञं वेदान्तप्रणिपादकं पुराणसारसर्वज्ञं कृष्णं वंदे जगद्गुरुं. Today we should learn the fundamentals of astrology. Without fundamentals we cannot go further in spiritual astrology. What are the fundamentals? The signs and planets and the houses. These three things we must know. The signs, S-I-G-N-S, the houses and the planets. I already enumerated the list of planets the other day. Emmy wrote. So no need of knowing about planets now. Let us take the signs. What are the signs actually? You see, on the equator, the sun goes around the earth apparently. There is an apparent path of the sun going around our earth. Actually, he does not go around our earth. Our earth goes around the sun. But he appears to surround our earth, you see. That apparent path of the sun around the equator of our earth is called the zodiac. Zodiac. Z-O-D-I-A-C. Zodiac. That is the apparent path of the sun around our equator. Why is it called zodiac? I will tell you. A zodiac is divided into 12 parts. 12 parts. Each part is called a sign. S-I-G-N. In Sanskrit it is called Rashi. In English, it's called sign, S-I-G-N. So, the apparent part of the sun, that is the zodiac, consists of 12 parts. So, to go around the equator of our earth, apparently, sun takes how much time? So, for the earth to go around itself, it takes 1 day. For the earth to go around the sun, it takes 1 year. So this 1 year time is taken by the sun. So for the zodiac to be surrounded by sun, it takes 1 year. So these 12 signs are comprised in 1 year. From March 21st to the next March 20th. Generally, March 21st of every year, that is the beginning of the solar movement, the path of the sun, that is the beginning. Next year, March 20th, it takes how many days? 365 days.
So we have been discussing about the symptoms. So to decide a remedy for a person, so when you take up the case to decide a remedy for a person, you should first the general symptoms, and from that you have to go to the mental symptoms. So the mental symptoms are very important to decide the remedy. Because that gives how a person thinks and how is his thinking, his logic. Depending upon this, he behaves. So his behavior is a reflection of his mental activity, his mind, his thoughts, the activity of the mind is reflected into the behavior of the person. So therefore, mental symptoms are to be given the first priority, the most important aspect to select, to decide a remedy. Especially in the treatment of a person in the chronic, to eliminate the chronic disease, we will know what a chronic disease is later. So to cure a person from the real chronic disease, especially, we must always take into consideration the mental symptoms of the person. If we decide only on the physical symptoms, then it will be only a palliation. So the physical symptoms, so what are known as the pains or the visual symptoms of the physical body, those should not be taken first into consideration. So this is always we have to remember that mental symptoms. So we will know more and more about the mental symptoms. So for example, you find a person, so the person is suffering from rush of blood to the head. So the person came for a treatment. So there is excessive rush of blood to the head and he feels dizzy and he could not sleep. So he came for a treatment. Another person also came for the treatment with the same problem. So we have two persons now, two patients. For both the patients, they reported the same problem. That is, at night there is much rush of blood to the head and he gets dizzy and he cannot sleep and he is feeling tired. So exactly the same problem for both the persons. So now, if you want to give medicine for insomnia because they are not able to sleep, you give some medicine for insomnia, that will give only it makes him sleep, some medicine like a tranquilizer. But his problem is not solved, never he is cured, because every day he has to take the tranquilizer. And after some days, after some time, he has to take much stronger tranquilizer. The dose has to be increased, so this is not a solution. So now how we have to make a proper approach. So we take all these symptoms, we note down, and we must know the mental symptoms. What is the behavior, what are the mental symptoms of the person. So for example, one person is such a person who does not care for his family. These now two examples, we have two persons. So one person is a person who does not care for the family, for the wife and children. So for example, how he behaves, for example, suppose he is on a journey and it is time to take some food because it is a lunch time or some such time. So this fellow just simply tells his wife and children, you please be seated here, I will just inquire about our journey and all this, and then he goes into the restaurant, eats and comes very silently. He doesn't care for the appetite for the hunger of wife and children. He doesn't feel that they also can be hungry, just like him. So his behavior is like that. And he tells them all lies. Just he tells his wife that I have gone just to inquire about our journey and where we have to go, where we have to stay and all this. So just like that. But he has gone to the restaurant, he has eaten, and we have to verify the modalities, and then we have to take into consideration the particular symptoms, the very, very specific symptoms, and then finally into causation also. Because there are many conditions, and what is the cause? Why this person has developed these symptoms? So all these things we have to make a synthesis. Then we can arrive at a proper remedy which is selected. Sometimes the causation will have a more important factor. Even though you have selected the remedy based on all these things, if you have ignored the cause, sometimes then also you may not be able to make a proper application. So all these are various factors. And when you are treating a person for the chronic disease, this chronic disease, what is the chronic disease? We will very shortly we will know according to the homeopathic approach. So this treatment of a chronic disease involves a long time of period, because the chronic disease, for a chronic disease to completely establish into the constitution, it is a longer period it takes. So therefore the treatment of a chronic disease, a real chronic disease which we are going to learn to study, that also involves a long time. It is the process of treatment. So there also general symptoms, what is the general picture of the person, that is most important. So that is what we have to always try to gather as much as possible about the general picture. So what is his suffering, what is in which organ he has the problem, these are all the secondary. But what is the general picture of the person? So that is important. Whether the person is an anxious person, whether the person is a jealous person. So what is the general type of behavior, general structure? That is to be studied when we really want to make a cure of the person from the real chronic conditions. That is important. So in all these cases, to treat a person, we have to remember that what is the condition of the vital force in the person. If the vital force is completely destroyed, then there is no use, even if you select a perfect remedy from all the informations, but still the remedy may not be able to act, because the vital force is not in a condition to produce a secondary action. So because what is it that cures a person is the vital force, but not the medicine. This we should not forget. The medicines cannot cure directly the person from a disease. If we think that we can cure the persons from disease only by medicine, as I told you on the very first day, so there are many thousands of medicines. We could have cured all the people from the disease by now, but it is not possible. So that itself is a proof that medicines cannot cure the person from disease. Medicines are only to be used to give a proper direction to the vital force. So the vital force is the most vital point for us. So how is the vital force of the person? If the vital force is able to produce secondary action when you apply a substance, a medicine, then that means the medicine can cure the person. That is how we have to understand. That is why in certain conditions, even though you have selected a perfectly diagnosed and you have selected the right medicine, administered in the right potency, but there is no response. That means the vital force is not at all responding to produce secondary action. Because already the vital force lost its strength because of either due to the long fight with the factors of disease or due to the long fight with the so many medicines which we have administered. Both.
Could you already see that not during the interview with the patient?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
easily see that, right?
You have to-
The force is almost.
Yes, but from the yeah, when you examine, when you speak, when you examine with the patient, you can know from this whether his constitution, his vital force is still is able to produce. Because if the vital force is still able to react with any substance, that means immediately it can be able to produce symptoms. Otherwise, there will be no symptoms produced. So the vital force, the real test to the vital force is whether the vital force can produce secondary action, thus producing the symptoms. That is the test. Otherwise if you administer a remedy also, there is no secondary action. The remedy can make a primary action but no secondary action. So in such condition it is very dangerous. So what we have to do in such conditions, that is what we study in our advanced approach. That is the only proper method. So that is why we have to always look for the similarity. And why should there be similarity only? If there is no similarity, what happens? That is also explained by Hahnemann in the starting itself. What happens? For that, he explains about the phenomenon in nature. Because unless we observe the phenomenon, the law of nature, we cannot understand this. According to the law of nature, two diseases, when two diseases means here two factors, they enter into a constitution. Naturally, the one which is stronger can dominate. But here, for example, here you have this is A and this is B, two factors. So, when these two, this is A and B, both the diseases, they have entered, they have influenced the constitution of a person, a patient. Then, is there a similarity between these two? Between this is A and B. If there is a similarity between these two, then what happens is the one which is stronger can eliminate the other. They will definitely eliminate the other. That is the law according to the law of nature. What is this law of nature? How can you say that it is according to law of nature? That is, Hahnemann has shown that there are many examples in nature for this when we observe. For example, a person got measles at certain age, muzzle, same word. So at certain age he got measles. So measles it is called the eruptive fever, which brings eruption on the skin, and at the same time some changes in the body are left behind after this. So for example, this person, when he got measles, after that he got some deafness because some of this part has gone to the ears. And then after some days the fever is gone, but this deafness stayed. So he was examined, he was treated, but still it is there. After some years, this person got chicken pox. Varicella. Varicella?
In French.
In French, yes.
De bokken in het Nederlands.
Ah, yes.
De bokken, ja. Same as
So this is also an eruptive fever of the same type but more intense. So then what you can observe is this person who got measles before and got some changes which were there for a long time, when he gets chicken pox, then all these which were standing for a long time will disappear. There are many examples which were verified. The deafness disappears. That is enough nature. So this is a proof, with many examples it has proved that two diseases which are similar in nature, when they happen to occur in the constitution of a person, one which is stronger will eliminate the effect of the one which is weaker. That is the principle. Suppose if there is no similarity between two diseases, so this is an example where there is similarity. Wherever there is similarity, then one disease which is stronger will eliminate the disease which is weaker when there is similarity. So this is the actual basis on which Hahnemann as he brought this homeopathic application into action, because what we are doing what we are making in homeopathic application is we are producing an artificial disease with more intensity than the natural disease, because with similarity. When we administer a homeopathic remedy, we are selecting the homeopathic remedy which is having similarity to the natural disease, and so we are producing an artificial disease with more intensity than the original disease. Therefore, according to this law, a stronger disease having similarity will eliminate the weaker disease. So that is the basis for homeopathic application. So if there are two diseases which have no similarity, then what happens? Then what happens is both the diseases, both this can exist in the constitution, because one cannot eliminate the other because there is no similarity. But one which is stronger will dominate, the other will be dominant and will be dormant. This is dominant. Suppose A and B both are not similar, they are there in the constitution, but they are not eliminated. For example, a person is suffering, acute diseases have three phases. An acute disease has three phases. So one phase, the first phase is the phase of onset of the disease. starting of the disease. The starting point of the disease starting phase, and second phase is the phase where the disease expands and established. And third phase is convalescence. This is what is called the prognosis, and this is syndrome, and this is convalescence, the third one. Either convalescence or death. Because acute disease is very severe. An acute disease, the prognosis is fast, and syndrome is also very fast. It doesn't take much long time. And then convalescence depends upon, if it is a false acute disease, there is no problem because the convalescence will take place by itself. If it is a real chronic disease, then it needs to make a proper treatment, otherwise it will lead to death. So we will see what are the false acute disease, what is the real acute disease. So the false acute diseases are not diseases at all. Suppose a person got some injury, it is not a disease, it is because of the external means. And suppose a person made a long journey and he is much tired, he got some headache and he feels body heavy, it is not a disease. So there is no need of medication. Just take some rest, or you apply some oil to the body and have a massage and take a shower, take some light food and take rest. There is no need of medication. But unfortunately, even for all these things, people are medicating themselves and spoiling their constitutions. He makes a journey, and because he had to make a night journey, he could not sleep. So for that, and then he wants to take a medicine. There is no need of a medicine. These are not diseases. And suppose a person has gone into some exposed to the cool climate suddenly, so he got some nose running and all this. So this also, unless it prolongs for a long time, but generally these are of a short period only. So these are not diseases. Suppose you have gone for a dinner and you have eaten so much, and afterwards you feel very heavy and some disturbance in the stomach. So there is some diarrhea, something. So this is not a disease. So you need not medicate for this. You just keep without eating for some time. Give a longer gap to take food, and then it will be adjusted. So for all such things, there is no need for medication. These are all false acute diseases. You are exposed to for a long time in the sun heat, then you feel very thirsty, very tired. This is not a disease. This is only a reaction of your body. So just not to make any opposite effect, that's all. If you are, after coming from such hot sun, if you take a cool drink and a cold shower, then you will have a problem. So you don't make any opposite effect. So with some adjustment, you can be relieved. There is no need of a medication. So these are all many examples for the false acute diseases. So now the real acute diseases. Which are the real acute diseases? So the real acute diseases are again classified into three types. One is environmental disease. Environmental disease, that is one type of real acute disease. And another is epidemic. Epidemic diseases. And the third one is called typical acute disease. These are the three types of real acute diseases. The environmental diseases, the first class of real acute disease, the environmental diseases, these are the diseases which occur when there are some changes into which has occurred for you in the environment. For example, if you have gone into a place where it is into a forest where there are much mosquitoes and all this, so there you got some fever after the bite of the mosquitoes with chill and all this. So this is an acute condition caused due to the environmental changes. These are the environmental diseases, like malaria, what you call malaria. It is an example for that. Those who are staying in that place for a long time, they are not very much, but suddenly when you go into that place, you have a change. So due to this change, your constitution is affected. And also malaria, filaria, these are the different types of examples for the environmental diseases. And then the epidemics, we know about epidemics, they are very dangerous acute diseases. More dangerous are the epidemics because they are very fast in their occurrence, and also their syndrome period is also very short, and if you do not deal with them very properly, then the persons may die. So these are the epidemics which suddenly appear in certain place and they affect many people of that area. They are epidemics. So like this, what you call cholera. You know this cholera, So that is very strong, very powerful epidemic. And encephalitis. These are some examples for this where they suddenly start spreading with great intensity. Some people think that in such cases homeopathic treatment is not possible, but it is quite possible, much faster also. If you select the right remedy, when you apply the remedy, immediately within a very short time the condition will be under control. That we have seen in many cases. And then the typical acute diseases, this is the third category of diseases. So the typical acute diseases, they are the acute diseases which occur in the persons due to their wrong procedures. For example, if you are living near a chemical factory, every day you are inhaling the chemical fumes, that causes a disturbance in the health and sometimes a great disturbance. Like how we have seen the people who are living in the area of the paper industry. Every day the fumes of chlorine and ammonia and all these chemicals are given out and they are inhaled by the people around. So these people are subjected to many problems of the lungs. So these people, unless they find some solution to avoid this, you cannot completely cure, because the cause is not eliminated. Only when there is an acute condition you may treat the person, but again they may fall into the same condition because they are continuing with this. And people who are staying near very dirty places, so like this, because of their habits. And for another example, an alcoholic person. So a person who every day is addicted to drugs or alcohol, then also he gets problems and serious problems. So these are all the typical acute diseases. These are all various examples of typical acute diseases. So they may get any sort of disturbance. It may be typhoids or it may be problems of the intestines. So it depends upon what type of life they are following, the wrong procedures. So these are about the acute diseases classification. In tomorrow's class we will deal with the classification of the chronic diseases. What are the chronic diseases? That is, we are going into very deep subject tomorrow. What are the real chronic diseases according to homeopathic science? Because normally our chronic diseases we understand normally is those diseases which are for a long time, prolonged for a long time with complication. That is not the explanation in homeopathy. According to homeopathy, there is another dimension about chronic disease that we are going to study in tomorrow's class. Mental disease, isn't it? Really, a normal human being should never behave like that. It's not a normal behavior. He speaks all false things very easily. He doesn't feel anything at all. He can speak even at any time with anybody. He can speak just spontaneously. He can speak something which is false. So to his wife and children, he makes them believe that. So they believe that yes, this fellow And then he says, if the children say, we are hungry, father, here there is no food available, he says. Yeah, there are many persons like this. So this fellow, what is the disease? This fellow, it is not insomnia. Insomnia cannot be cured unless you cure this fellow from this disease. You remember? Huh? Unless you cure this fellow from this disease, he cannot be cured from his insomnia problem.
But how did you know about this behavior? Because
Yes, that is an... You do not ask him. If you ask him, this fellow will not say. That is what is the art. That is what, there is an art for this. That is also will be explained. How to extract, get the information about the person, the behavior of the person. There is a method that is very, very clearly given. That is what is called to prepare a proper case sheet. Case sheet means not only the paper, but to get all the information about the thinking and the behavior of the person. That is most important. So this fellow needs a remedy, for example, opium. In a higher dilution, like 10,000, 10 m. Only one dose, just one dose of opium in 10 m. And just after 1 or 2 months, then this fellow is changed. This behavior is changed. And then his insomnia also will disappear. He will be able to sleep now. There is no more rush of blood to head and this problem. No need of any tranquilizer. He can sleep peacefully. Because there is a change in his mental behavior. So the disease is in the mental plane. So we have eliminated the disease from the mental plane and its effect on the vital plane, that means he could not sleep, that is gone. And the second person, the second patient with the same problem, the problem is the same, rush of blood and dizziness and could not sleep. So the first fellow was given opium. And what about the second fellow? He has a different type of behavior. He has not such behavior. So what is the behavior of the second person, for example? So this person is very emotional and his emotions are always wrongly disturbed. For example, when he has done something very good, for example, he is a poet. He made a good poetry, and then people they have appreciated him very much. So in their appreciation, they have arranged a meeting where they have felicitated this fellow, and those people, they have praised, he is a wonderful, a good poet, like this. So naturally he gets emotion, but in his emotion, he gets emotion, then he should feel, it should be happy emotion. But that time he starts weeping. That's the fun of this. When he is thanked, or when he is praised, when he is appreciated, then he gets emotional, starts in tears and weeping. And then he says, who is there in this world who can recognize my worth? But people have recognized you, therefore we are felicitating you. But he says, there is nobody who recognizes me, and then he weeps. This is a strange behavior. This is what is called misplaced emotion. See? So, he is to be given a dose of lycopodium. Here it is enough if you give in 1 m, 1 dose. And then, after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then he starts to sleep normally. No tranquilizer anymore. So, here also we have taken his mental condition into consideration, the mental symptoms, and we have given a remedy basing on that. So after that, when he is free from this type of misplaced emotion, then it is cured from the mental plane, and then he can sleep normally. No need of any other medicine for sleeping. These are examples. So like this, you have to observe and you have to know completely what is the mental behavior, what type of thinking he has, what is his logic, what is his behavior. So this is the mental symptoms. So you have to give importance to this. So first take mental symptoms and then modalities and then other things. That is how you have to make a treatment, especially in the chronic treatment, also in acute treatment. Suppose, for example, a person got fever. Suddenly he got a fever. And he got fever, pains, headache and all these things. So if you want to give a medicine for fever or headache, you may palliate. But for this person, he has an intense fear of death and a great restlessness. For some time he sits on the sofa, for some time he lies down on the bed, and again he gets up, he moves here and there, and he is very, very restless, and he has great fear that he is going to die, and he has a thirst but doesn't drink much water. He feels thirsty. If you give a glass of water, just he makes a sip and keeps the glass back. And he feels a burning sensation. So, you have to consider this behavior, not just the fever, how much is the temperature. This is not important. He has fever, you measure the temperature, that's okay, but you should not give medicine for the temperature. So you should give a medicine for this behavior. So then it is an acute condition actually. So in acute condition also we have the same application. So there is a remedy, for example, arsenic album for this. So just administer a dose in 200 potency. So within a few hours then he is under control. So like this, symptoms, when you gather these symptoms, and you find out which are the mental symptoms and which are the modalities. You can classify the symptoms and then take into consideration the mental symptoms, and you have to find a remedy which is proved to produce such mental symptoms, similar mental symptoms. So that is what we have to do. That is the basis for this. So that is why we have to know about the symptoms. So yesterday we have studied about symptoms, how they are classified. And so among these symptoms, the mental symptoms and these modalities, these are most important. General symptoms, so generally how the person has modalities and all these classes. So therefore we have to prepare a case sheet which consists of all these various symptoms of the patient. So how to prepare a case sheet also very clearly given by Hahnemann. To prepare a case sheet is a big art. That is why Dr. Kent says that a case sheet properly prepared is half cured already. When you prepare a case sheet in a perfect manner, then already you have a good picture, a true picture of the person, and then you can find a similarity in a remedy. That can be possible only when you prepare a case sheet in a proper manner. And how to prepare a case sheet, Hahnemann has explained in the aphorisms. From aphorism 84 until aphorism 114, you find the explanation for preparing a case sheet. And so, the symptoms, so we have to find out. So the first thing what we have to do is to prepare a case sheet. So if any homeopath you find who wants to immediately give a remedy without preparing a case sheet, that means it is not successful. It is not a proper homeopathic approach. So you must, the physician has to be prudent in preparing the case sheet. He should be patient to prepare the case sheet of a patient. He should have patience. If the physician himself is a hurried person and could not sit and prepare a case sheet, then he cannot do anything. He has to be cured. And also, it is the totality of symptoms, that is what is to be remembered always. Totality. So when you prepare a case sheet, you have many symptoms you gather. So the diagnosis for the patient depends upon the totality of symptoms, not upon one or two symptoms. You must consider the totality, because the remedy which you have to select from the materia medica to cure the person is in the form of the totality. So unless you arrive at the totality of symptoms, you cannot match this case with the totality of a remedy. So that is why Hahnemann says that it is important to make the totality of symptoms, not on just depend upon one or two symptoms. If you only take into consideration only one symptom or two symptoms and ignore the other symptoms, then you may make a wrong selection of the remedy. So therefore, totality of symptoms is very important. So you have to prepare a case sheet, then you have to make the totality of symptoms. These two are important. And then how to match. So how to find a similarity, because the homeopathic approach is to find similarity of the symptoms. So similarity you have to find when you make a totality of symptoms, and in these symptoms the mentals and the modalities of the patient and the mentals and modalities of the remedy. So you have to find the similarity between these two. And where you find the maximum similarity, that remedy is to be selected. When we study materia medica of any remedy, you study many symptoms in a remedy. For example, we are studying Nux vomica, there are many symptoms. But you should not think that if you have to give Nux vomica to a person, you should find all the symptoms explained in the materia medica of Nux vomica. That is not possible. If all these symptoms have to be established into a person, then by that time person will not be there. There is no question of coming to you for treatment. Because every remedy was proved to form the materia medica, it was proved on many persons. Each remedy was subjected to proving on the constitutions of many healthy persons. And the record of the changes made by all these persons was taken, and a synthesis of all this record of all these persons, which is brought as a common experience of all these persons, that was taken into consideration, which was taken as the materia medica of that remedy. So therefore, no one person can have all the symptoms, but when we study the mental symptoms and modalities and all these symptoms in a remedy, so in order to select this remedy for a person, you should have at least 3 or 4 of the mental symptoms and the modalities. That is the basis. If we ignore mental symptoms and modalities and only take into consideration the pathological symptoms, then it is a problem. Then you cannot cure the person. So that is how we have to remember always. So which can act on the miasm which is making the vital force not to act, and that remedy will, and then he is given Gardinal. So here his disease A is the crisis, his fits and all is. Disease B is Gardinal disease. That means when you have introduced Gardinal into the constitution, it is producing its primary action. So a secondary action is produced by the vital force towards Gardinal effect. So another disease is created. So this Gardinal produces its own symptoms. So now, because you are administering Gardinal every day, so this becomes dominant. Therefore, the previous disease which is there gets weaker, but it is not eliminated. The moment he stops Gardinal, that becomes more stronger again. That is what is happening. That is a proof. Because there is no similarity, there is no cure. Gardinal could not cure because it is administered without similarity. Moreover, this Gardinal is administered in its physical crude form. It is not in a potentous form also. Therefore, it is always staying there in the constitution, and it is producing constantly its primary action. Whenever you give one dose, it produces primary action. So constantly this is producing its primary action, inducing the vital force to produce secondary action. So when this becomes constantly, when you do it every day, what happens? After some time, the vital force loses its strength. That is why the Gardinal disease becomes more stronger, therefore the person will get the symptoms permanently due to the effect of Gardinal. That is what is happening. So this we have to remember. If there is similarity between the two diseases, then the stronger disease will eliminate the weaker disease. If there is no similarity, then the stronger disease will dominate and the other disease will be there latent, but it is not cured. So many diseases can be kept in the constitution. If you are using many medicines, each substance will produce its own primary action, and then the vital force has to make secondary action with all these. It is just like opening many war fronts. You have a country and you have a war frontier. So if there is one frontier, you can concentrate all the army in one frontier. You have many frontiers. You have same army is distributed into all the frontiers. Then you are weak. then you are prone to be attacked from any side by the enemy. That is why you are susceptible. You are left susceptible to every effect. So this is according to the law of nature. That is what Hahnemann says. You observe the law of nature and try to honor it and follow it. Then you will have a solution. That is what Hahnemann says. So the primary and secondary actions of the remedies, that we have to always remember. So the substance produces primary action as I explained you, and immediately a secondary action is produced by the vital force. So what is important is the vital force should not be destroyed by our wrong action. The vital force should be strengthened so that it can produce a strong secondary action. That is very important for us. So any effort if you make to suppress the symptoms, then the vital force gets weak. That is the danger. After some time, if you keep on suppressing the symptoms constantly, the vital force cannot produce any secondary action because you are acting against the vital force. Therefore, you must never try to directly deal with these symptoms, to suppress the symptoms. For example, if somebody has fever, in high temperature, the temperature is going up. So if you give a medicine to bring the temperature down, that means you are just suppressing the symptom. Sometimes that may be fatal, most dangerous. The children, for example, a child has got fever and temperature is going up very sharply, very sharp time, 40 degrees, oh, high temperature, what to do? Then give a medicine to bring the temperature, then it goes to 37 or below within a short time, from 41 to 37 like that. Then what happens? It is a big shock to the vital force. So sometimes the vital force, in order to save the person from death and danger, it has to deal with this shock. So this shock is transferred as a permanent effect in one of the organs. Then what happens? One of the organs gets paralyzed, something like that. This is because you have with a great force you have suppressed the symptom. Because the temperature which is going up is one symptom due to the secondary action of the vital force against some factor which was disturbing. So without finding the totality, if you only suppress one symptom, then it is dangerous. So these are many, you can find many examples like this. So you must know that in no way you should make any action against the functioning of vital force. That is most important. You have to strengthen the vital force, and then the vital force can overcome. But the medicine which you should apply also should act in the same direction. So this we have to, that is why Hahnemann says that don't make any palliation very often. In certain instances, the palliation may be needed in some emergency condition for a short period. But if you make a palliation repeatedly, for example, a person is suffering from headache, every day he gets a headache which starts with the sunrise, and by sunset the headache disappears. So it's a chronic. it is palliation for a long time. Then after some years, then the vital force is totally destroyed. So it may be any of this. This is because for a long time you have suppressed. You make a palliation for a long time. So it should not be for a long time. If palliation is needed, you can do it, but for a very short time. Never again and again. Because that is not a solution.
Shusla salts concerned as well?
Shusla salts, they never palliate. Because they are not suppressive. They also work on the vital force only. To balance the salts and the tissues.
So there is no danger of...
Shusla salts, no.
If you take too many.
If you only take for suppression immediate for many times, but generally Shusla salts, the basis is not like painkiller. Shusla salt is not a painkiller. You cannot use Shusla salt like a painkiller. So that is why. So anything that you try to kill the symptom, that is dangerous. That we have to observe. So the primary and secondary actions, they are to be understood properly.